Hello, hello. Andre Khatchaturian, Armenian Sports News Podcast. Back at it again on this beautiful June 10th day we're recording. And zooming in all the way from Yerevan, Armenia is Jason Takhtadjian joining on the podcast. Thank you so much for taking time off your vacation to join the podcast. But you're not really on vacation. You've been attending these Armenian national team games, one on the women's side, one on the men's side. So we'll be talking about all of that. So Jason, how are you today?
I'm doing good, man. Enjoying my my vacation slash bit of work that I've been doing here in Armenia as well. It's my first time ever visiting Armenia, and it's been a long time coming, honestly. But yeah, like you did say, I got the opportunity to watch both the men's and women's national teams play, and they both played against Kazakhstan, and we're gonna dive right into that just to kind of talk about the significance of both games, what ways outweighs the other. But overall, I'm really enjoying my time in Armenia.
Yeah, you said you went on a crazy hike today.
Yeah, Surpovanes. We went up like a mountain, like what, 4 kilometers or something like that. It took about a couple hours to get up with the family all together going up and coming back down. And we just missed a thunderstorm. So if it was raining while we were coming down the mountain, it would have been a problem.
Yeah, so I guess, who would have thought we would have led the ASN podcast off with Jason's hike, which, hiking is a sport. So I'm glad you were able to successfully complete that hike, and you were rewarded with some good chorovats as well. It's what the reports are saying.
This is correct. Some good homemade khorovats, homemade cheese, homemade everything, lavash, all the good stuff. And we were able to enjoy that out in nature. You can't really get better than that.
So before the food coma hits you and you have to knock out, let's hit the topics. Let's start off with the UEFA Euro 2025 qualification. Armenia with a couple games and a good result against Kazakhstan, which you attended that game in Yerevan. They defeated them 2-1, and then they followed that up with a loss against
It was also against Kazakhstan.
They played Kazakhstan twice, so they won one and
Yeah.
lost one. A lot of Kazakhstan.
Yeah, one at home.
The men played against Kazakhstan too, so we'll get to that later. But the first game against Kazakhstan, Armenia won that match 2-1, scoring on goals from Dalakian, Anna Dalakian, and Mara Lartin on a penalty kick. And they took a 2-0 lead, and they ended up winning 2-1, a huge victory for Armenia. They already had surprised everyone with a 3-2 win back in April in the Euro 2025 qualifying, a 3-2 win against Bulgaria. That was on the road. So they came back home and they took a W against Kazakhstan in front of 130 fans at Armavir City Stadium. You were there. You were one of those 130 fans. What can you say about the atmosphere and the game itself?
Well, first and foremost, it felt like more than 130 fans. I felt like it was at least about 500. You're talking about, a stadium at Sardarapat FC in Armavir, and they were able to get quite the showing of fans to watch the game. Now, I'm going to be completely honest with you. The traffic in Yerevan was so bad that I only made it to the second half of the game, but I made it just in time as Mara Lartin scored the penalty kick to make it 2-0. Ana Dalakian's goal was in the first half. I personally missed that, but still, they build a 2-0 lead. Kazakhstan gets a pretty lucky goal, just sails right over the goalkeeper's hand. And that was with about 20 or so minutes to go. So the rest of the game was just about managing it out. Armenia did a good job. They had some counterattacks. They could have honestly scored 2 or 3 more goals. But ultimately, that's not what mattered. What mattered was they won and celebrations unfolded. The team was just, dancing in circles and just hugging each other. The bench just mobbed the field and joined their teammates in celebration. The fans, there were a lot of kids as well, getting really excited, wanting to get autographs and stuff like that. And it's definitely a new age for Armenian sports in general, but specifically for Armenian women's soccer, because who would have even thought that a newly retooled team with a lot of young talent as well from both in Armenia and especially all over the diaspora coming together to play for this national team, to be able to get a result like that. Now, their away game against Kazakhstan didn't go their way. It was 4-1. a final score for Kazakhstan.
So let
But
me
as it
interrupt you there
stands,
for a second.
yeah,
It's very rare to see in these qualification tournaments, the round robin, to see the teams play their following game to be against the same team in the opposite venue. I don't think I've seen that very often on either side, and we saw it here, and I think that's kind of a disadvantage. One of my favorite things to do when it comes to MLB betting is if there's a doubleheader, you going on a rain out doubleheader, you see what happens in the first game, and the second game you bet on the team that lost because it's such a short turnaround, and there's a lot of familiarity, and you may have seen that here. Big disadvantage for Armenia going to Kazakhstan, which I don't know why they play in the UEFA, but it seems like Kazakhstan. There's nothing about Kazakhstan that speaks Europe. None of Kazakhstan is in Europe. At least a sliver of Russia is in Europe. Kazakhstan is in Asia. They should be in the AFC. But they play in the UEFA, and Armenia had to travel to Astana, where they lost 4-1. He said it was not very competitive.
yeah, no, that game in Almaty, that was just not that competitive, and it almost seemed like they were gassed out because of that 2-1 win, and it was almost like an emotional toll, to say the least. But again, you're absolutely correct, because the turnaround between that home game when they won to the away game that they lost was maybe a few days. So yeah, you could definitely say that there was a disadvantage for Armenia going into that game. It does seem like, especially in these lower tier UEFA women's qualifiers and groups that they do set up, sometimes it does happen when they do play the same team twice back to back. But it is unusual to see just a few days turnaround between the two fixtures.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I said Astana. You are correct. Game was in Almaty. Um, my Kazakh geography, man. I don't know. Anyway, so with the win and the loss, Armenia is now 2-2 in Group 4 of League C of the qualification. So how this works is the Euro 2025 qualifying has three different leagues. It's League A, League B, and League C. Armenia's in League C, and they are in Group 4 of League C. They're second place right now, behind Romania, and by being second place, there's a possible qualification for the playoffs, where they would play a League A team and most likely not win, but it would still be a big step for Armenia, the Armenian women, who they hadn't won in so many years up until April, and now with 2 wins in the last 2 months, just you know huge progress, as you mentioned. Good time for Armenian women's national soccer team, and you can only go up from here. So, they won't play again until July. They'll play Bulgaria in Yerevan. That's a huge game. A victory there can propel them, help them clinch that second seed. And once they get that, they'll have an opportunity to qualify for the playoffs, where they'll face a League A team, and we'll see what happens there at that point. So we'll have to wait until next month. Armenia versus Bulgaria on July 12th in Yerevan, and then a few days later against Romania in Bucharest. So we will absolutely keep you posted on that when that happens. But now let's move to the men's side. Jason, you attended an Armenia Kazakhstan men's game as well, and that was a friendly. But the result was another victory for Armenia.
Another 2-1 result. I mean, just the exact same opponent and the exact same result, basically. And this was a much needed win for Armenia, even though, like you said, the stakes were pretty low. It was just an international friendly. This is, just part of the tune-up schedule. This is the part of the schedule in international soccer before the European Championships begin, before Copa America begins, where you just have a slew of international friendlies, whether they're teams competing in these big tournaments or not, just to keep these players fresh. And Armenia hadn't won in their last 9 games, and ultimately they take this W at home in front of a crowd that I was there in attendance for. Definitely felt like it was not a sold out crowd, but it was as close as you could make it to being sold out. The crowd was definitely into the game. When Armenia had their first goal scored, which it was an own goal from a Kazakh defender in the 4th minute. invigorated the crowd. You could already see flares being sparked up, and all the ultras already starting to have their chants. But Kazakhstan gave Armenia some things to consider because they hit the post twice in between, like, I want to say a 20-30 minute period of play. So they were getting close to scoring. Then comes the second half. Vahan Bichakchian, who's had a really good season in Poland, gets the second goal, doubles the lead for Armenia, and everyone is pretty much celebrating as if they won the game until a very random penalty gets awarded towards the end of added time. And honestly, I didn't even catch it watching it in the stands, exactly what happened that led to that penalty kick. A lot of people around me were kind of confused as well. Kazakhstan goes, scores the penalty, and then that's the last kick of the game. The referee just blows the whistle, and then that's the game. So 2-1. They don't get the clean sheet, but ultimately, does that really matter when you just need to get that win?
The only people that I think affected are the degenerates who may have bet Armenia -1.5. And, I'm not saying I did that, but anyway, let's keep moving forward. Actually backward, because a few days before that, Armenia played Slovenia in Ljubljana, Slovenia. 2-1 loss. Armenia was competitive in the game. It was 1-1 up until the second half when Slovenia scored in the 63rd minute. But you had 4 friendlies here that Armenia had from March till now in preparation for the Nations League this fall, and they went 1-3. So that win against Kazakhstan, definitely a big one, and it kind of helps that it was their last game. Kind of end on a high note, build some confidence as their first Nations League game is on September 7th against Latvia. 3 days later, they'll play against North Macedonia, and Faroe Islands is also in their group. So Armenia was relegated to League C of the Nations League. They were in League B in the last cycle and finished last place. And that's why they're in League C again. So hopefully they'll get some good results and get promoted back into League B. But overall, very busy week of soccer in Armenia this past week. 4 matches, 2 on the men's side, 2 on the women's side, and 2 wins, 2 losses. So you can be happy with that. I think it's better for the women's side. They got that big win. They're building confidence in Armenia, and the club was in such doldrums for many years, and now they have something to build on. They have some confidence. So I think that's what's most important. And for the men's side, we'll see what happens. It's, again, 1-3 in the friendlies. That Kosovo game was very winnable at home, and they lost. That's kind of embarrassing. But they were competitive on the road against Czech Republic and Slovenia before beating Kazakhstan at home. So they'll have a few months off before the Nations League begins. Any final thoughts on Armenian soccer before we move on?
I think you kind of touched all the bases, and we got to look forward to the Nations League because ultimately the next major tournament that Armenia could qualify for is the 2026 World Cup in North America.
That will be quite the accomplishment. They have to not have results like losing 1-0 at home to Kosovo in order for that to happen. But
Absolutely,
we'll see what happens with that, and we'll keep an eye on it. Let's move forward to the world of tennis. Elina Avanesyan had an incredible run at the French Open, reaching the 4th round again in back-to-back years. What a journey that was for Elina. And she did, she did much better than Karen Khachanov did in the tournament. Karen Khachanov unfortunately flamed out in the second round, but the same cannot be said for Avanesyan, who had some incredible performances, most notably against, and I'm sorry if I butcher her name, Qinwen Zheng of China, number 7 ranked in the world. Avanesyan beat her in 3 sets. After dropping the first set 6-3, she came back and won 6-3 and 7-6 to advance to the 4th round, where she lost to 12th ranked Jasmine Paolini in the 4th round. And I feel like the magic kind of just ran out for Avanesyan. But she's done well against these top 10 opponents in her career now. She defeated another top 10 opponent at the Australian Open. I think she's 3-0 now against top 10 opponents. And Jason,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you know if the world rankings have been updated since the French Open ended, but she will make a huge jump now, considering in her last, I want to say 7 Grand Slam matches, she's 5-2. She went 2-1 in the Australian Open, and then she went 3-1 in the French Open. So it's 5-2 this year in Grand Slam matches, and equaled her career high of how far she advanced in a Grand Slam by going to the 4th round. She went to the 3rd round in the Australian Open, and we'll see what she does in the Wimbledon later on this month.
Absolutely. I'm not exactly sure what day this month or next month those updated rankings will be announced, but last time I checked, she's 78th in the women's singles. I'm sure that's going to be changing for sure, especially since everything that you listed right now, you would assume somebody of, that stature, whoever competes at that level and beats top 10 ranked opponents is going to have a big boost. I think her career best is 61st or 62nd. So I would expect
60th.
to either get.
She was ranked
Yeah,
60th in February. Currently, in the last ranking on May 2024, which was right before the French Open, she was 70th. So you can expect a jump, maybe a career best jump. We'll see what happens.
there you go.
And more Avanesyan news is currently
Yes.
she fights for fights. She's not a UFC fighter. She is a tennis player. Right now, she represents the nation of Russia, but she is currently working on getting her Armenian citizenship and trying to play under the Armenian flag, which would be, we've seen many Armenians in tennis, but we haven't seen many of them play under the Armenian flag. Andre Agassi played under the American flag. David Nalbandian played in the Argentinian flag. Khachanov plays under the Russian flag. Avanesyan playing under the Armenian flag will be pretty cool and a source of pride for many Armenians around the world.
Absolutely. That news was broken by Armen Press during an interview with Karin Jaloyan, and he said that they are in the works to make that happen, to grant her citizenship so then she can indeed represent the Armenian flag. And kind of like you said, it's hard for me to kind of think back because I'll be completely honest, I've gotten only into tennis pretty recently. It's hard to think back watching any tennis player represent the Armenian flag. They're probably few and far between. But like you said, all the major names were represented in different flags, or currently right now the two main heavy hitters are Avanesyan and Khachanov, which were under the Russian flag, which doesn't get shown in these matches in the broadcasts. But now this would be shown that you would absolutely have that Armenian representation, and I'm sure that if they're able to get this to go, we're going to see more Armenian representation from Avanesyan herself.
And I think it's also worth noting the Olympics are coming up. So I don't know how that would impact that. There is an Olympic tennis tournament on the men's and women's side. You would expect Khachanov to absolutely represent play in the Olympics. I don't know if Avanesyan will be able to qualify. I don't know how big this tournament is. I guess that we should have been more prepared, Jason. What is wrong with us? But nevertheless, if you have Armenian representation, then you could be an Armenian Olympian, which so that we'll keep an eye out on that as well. And I mentioned Avanesyan 3-0 in the top 10 matches. Again, Australian Open, she beat Maria Sakkari. She beat Ons Jabeur, number 6 in the world, in the Miami Open before beating Zheng Qinwen in the French Open. So when you're 3-0 against top 10 opponents, you should be in my mind be at least top 50. So we'll see what happens with the rankings. They should be coming out any day now. Who ended up winning the French Open? Do you know?
I think. Oh man, I'm not entirely sure because I don't have a computer with me right now. But I think it was one of the main hitters. Maybe it was Swiatek.
Iga Swiatek. She actually defeated Jasmine Paolini, who defeated Elina Avanesyan. So if you're gonna lose, might as well lose to someone who lost in the championship. So I would say it's a quality loss for Elina. So definitely a bright future for the young lady. And now let's move forward to the world of UFC. Obviously, big event happened this past last week in Newark, New Jersey. Former U.S. President Donald Trump was even there to see Islam Makhachev defeat Dustin Poirier in the UFC lightweight championship. Now, why are we talking about this? One guy is a Chechen Russian, the other guy is Louisiana Cajun American. We're talking about this because the winner of this is highly expected to fight Arman Tsarukyan for the lightweight belt later on this year. And Makhachev won, as expected. He was the favorite. So now we're expected to see Makhachev and Tsarukyan fight later on this year, maybe in the fall. Both fighters said they want to fight in Madison Square Garden. Usually the UFC fights, UFC goes to the MSG around November, sometime in the fall. And we'll see when that happens. But this is definitely big because post-fight, Makhachev came out and said that he has interest in going up a weight class and fighting for another belt, which would mean he would be dodging Tsarukyan. And of course, all the Tsarukyan fans are saying, "You're a chicken. You need to fight Tsarukyan. You're scared of him. You know what's going to happen." So I don't know. But Dana White came out and said that he says that the next fight is Tsarukyan versus Makhachev, and that Makhachev can't dodge him. He needs to take the Tsarukyan fight. That's the fight to make. That's what he said. So what do you make of all of this, Jason? Do you think Makhachev is scared, or do you think he just wants to build his legacy? What do you make of all of this?
I'm sure there's some level of concern, but who am I to say that, right? Ultimately, Makhachev wins against Dustin Poirier. It goes almost to the distance in the 5th round, and he grabs Poirier and submits him. And Makhachev admitted that that was a very tough fight for him as well, and that Dustin Poirier is class. But we all know this. The thing is, yeah, his comments about going up a weight class instead of addressing the elephant in the room. Arman Tsarukyan is the guy who was supposed to fight you next, but he turned that fight down because of a short notice turn for him after beating Oliveira. And yeah, you didn't really see Makhachev really address that in the post-fight interview. So yeah, one is to assume that there is obviously some concern, or it's in the back of his mind. He's not trying to put too much weight onto it because this would be a fight for the end of the year. And why would you want to start hyping it up now? I personally think you should start hyping a fight like this up now because, especially if you're a UFC fan, you know the history between Makhachev and Tsarukyan. This is the rematch that's been in the works, I would say, for like half a decade at this point. And we want to see it because of Arman Tsarukyan being able to prove himself time after time. The Dariush knockout was huge. The result against Oliveira is huge. So him against Makhachev only makes sense for Makhachev's fight, that for that to be his next fight, essentially. And the same goes for Tsarukyan as well, because I'm sure the training camp is going to start ramping up and intensifying soon because he wanted at least a few months.
Yeah, Tsarukyan was 22 years old the last time these two guys fought in 2019 in St. Petersburg. And I feel like so much has changed with him since then. He's just a different guy now. He's more confident. I don't think he barely spoke English back then. COVID didn't even exist back then. And it was so long ago. It's just a lot has changed since then. And if they do fight in November, he'll be 28 years old at that time. His birthday's in October, so it's just from 22 to 28. That's like from being a boy to being a man, and a lot has changed. And I think the rematch will be great. But I do have one thing to say. A lot of these UFC reporters, I've covered fights in the past. It's like the fight ends 10 minutes later, they're asking them what's next. It's like, dude, this guy just spent a whole training camp preparing for a fight, won a belt. Let him breathe. Let him celebrate. Like all those questions can come later. I get they're just doing their job. They're asking for maybe they get a call out for a good headline on their website to get traffic. But it's I always feel like it's just a wrong time to ask any fighter what's next. It's just stupid. Let the guy celebrate. He just won a belt. Islam did. But I'm sure we'll be talking about this for months to come. And it was good to get a vote of confidence from Dana White for Tsarukyan to get that next fight. And I think that's kind of what will happen if Makhachev is trying to, do what Conor McGregor did or what Henry Cejudo did and get multiple belts. That time will come for him. But I think he needs to get through Tsarukyan first. And if Tsarukyan does win, you can absolutely guarantee that there will be a trilogy fight. So for Dana, this makes a lot of sense. It's like, if Makhachev wins, okay, let him go title chase, let him go weight class. And if Tsarukyan wins, we have another fight, like a trilogy fight set up for for the UFC fans around the world.
Yep.
All right. Before we head into our interview with Nicholas Sahakian, one of the top wrestlers in the country, coming out of high school, and he has committed to the University of Michigan. We want to highlight a couple of athletes who accomplished some great things this past few weeks. Jason, I know you want to talk about one of our favorite fan favorite fighters, boxing fighters, Gugo Hovhannisyan. What did he do?
Hey, Goog. Well, you're gonna have to first remind me the opponent that he fought, but that I'm gonna put that to the side right now because Google Hovhannisyan becomes 6-0 in his boxing career. He's still undefeated, and he was so dominant in that fight that his opponent's corner had to throw in the towel during, I believe, the second round because he was just being knocked down. Google Hovhannisyan was just showing his prowess, his power. And you're talking about a guy who's a power puncher, but also he's nimble on his feet too. So I'm excited to see when, and hopefully it's sooner than later, we get to see Gugo Hovhannisyan start fighting some top 10, top 15 ranked heavyweights. If you ask me, there are multiple heavyweights I would love to see Gugo Hovhannisyan face next, or maybe sometime in the end of the year. Who knows? Maybe the beginning of next year. But as long as he doesn't retire, I would love to see Gugo Hovhannisyan take on Deontay Wilder. I would love to see
Wow, you're ready to give him that fight now?
I think just it's because Deontay Wilder's stock is going down while Gugo Hovhannisyan's stock is going up, and I think he is going to be the type of guy that a promoter would love to showcase because he seems like a really relatable dude as well, and he's young.
He is he is just, he looks like a teddy bear. He's so, he's a huge guy, 6'7", but he just comes off as like very friendly and he's very devastating. You don't want to be in a ring with this guy. And I think fans really like him for that. And he's, like you said, he's undefeated, 6-0, beat a guy, Luis Pascual. And it's exciting to see what's going to happen with this guy going forward. He's only 26 years old, so maybe pump the brakes on that fight with Deontay Wilder. But hey, I see what
you
you're
never know,
trying to
man. It's boxing.
You're trying to hype it up. I get it. It's boxing. You're trying to hype it up, but definitely an exciting time in his young career. I'm going to highlight another boxer who also is a very big, devastating man, but comes off as a soft teddy bear. Like, he has such a great smile and he seems very friendly. Is David Chaloyan, who he just qualified for the Paris Olympics. He was in the qualification tournament and he was able to qualify, becoming the 12th Armenian Olympian to qualify for the Olympics. And sorry, I'm trying to pull something up here. He becomes the 12th Armenian to qualify for the men's super heavyweight division. That's the highest weight class. So Chaloyan qualifies for that. He secured it following a triumph in the quota bouts round in Thailand, the 2024 World Olympic Qualification Tournament. So Chaloyan, there was a bunch of Armenians participating in that, but Chaloyan was the only Armenian to break through and qualify, meaning he's the only Armenian boxer at the Summer Olympics this year, which is a little bit of a change from years past. And we had, obviously, Hovhannes Bachkov compete at the Olympics in the last cycle. He won a bronze medal. But this time around, we shall only see Chaloyan in the, again, super heavyweight division.
Yeah, and I'm glad that we at least have one boxer, especially when we look back at the other Olympics that Armenia has qualified and represented in with other boxers. At least we have somebody representing, but you got 12 right now. Maybe we're going to have a few more Olympians joining the current slate. But it's really cool to see Chaloyan go to the Olympics here in Paris. And if he can medal, especially because Armenia only has one representative, that would be great.
Yeah, he defeated Martin McDonough in the final quota bout. Beat Roujbe Safari in round 2, and then so he'll be representing Armenia in the Olympics next month. And congratulations, David, and also congratulations to the Armenian Para-Athletics Federation, led by Stas Nazarian, and thank you to all of our donors who helped Stas Nazarian and his team go to the Czech Republic to compete in the Czech International Para Athletics Championship. Stas and Haik Abgarian finished first and second in the 100 and 400 meter wheelchair races. None of this would have been possible without your donations. So thank you, ASN family, for the money you helped raise, which the federation was able to use to travel to Europe, to Czech Republic, to compete in that event. And definitely an inspiring moment. Obviously,
Definitely.
Stas Nazarian, six-time Paralympian, lost his legs during the Spivak earthquake in 1988. And he's competed in many Paralympics. And Abgarian, he is an Artsakh veteran. He lost, he was disabled during the war, and obviously moments like this help give a better outlook on life for our veterans. And it's important to take care of them. They fought for us, and also it's sad to see the government doesn't really help with the funding for the Para Athletics Federation in Armenia. So that's why it's important to raise money in the diaspora and help them out in any way we can.
Absolutely. I mean, this is almost bigger than sports, and it's almost just another example of trying to have, inclusivity in every aspect for sports. Everybody deserves to have a chance to play.
Absolutely. And with that, let us go into our interview with Nick Sahakian, Bosco, St. John Bosco High School, excellent wrestler in the highest division, weight class. And he is committed to the University of Michigan. And we can't wait to see what he has to say about his future and about what it means to be competing in one of the greatest athletic universities in America. Andre Khatchaturian of Armenian Sports News, joined today with a very special guest, Nicholas Sahakian, one of the top up-and-coming wrestlers in the nation. Nicholas is heading into his senior year at St. John Bosco. He is one of the top wrestlers in the program there and in the country. Nico, how are you today?
I'm good. It's a nice sunny day here, so gonna be more great.
It looks beautiful where you're at. It's, again, it's a nice time of year. So you had a huge year wrestling wise in at St. John Bosco this year. Take us through your season, and from what do you think was the best thing you accomplished from when you entered your junior year until now?
So this year was a little rocky for me. I had 2 losses to number 1 in the country, but it's all good. It's a learning process. I lost to the same kid twice. I couldn't really adjust as well as I wanted to, but it's just a part of life, But that's all I can do now, and just work harder and try to get better. Even though you moved down a weight class, I still think we're gonna, maybe wrestle again. So I'm just waiting for that, and I think it's my turn to win now. And then I got second at state, second at the Doc Buchanan. It was, it was a pretty tough tournament, but not really for me. I pinned my way through the tournament in the semis and in the semis of the state. So he was he was my best opponent basically. That's all I have to worry about all season long.
That's interesting. I asked you, what did you remember most about this past year, and you immediately talked about some of the tougher moments. Is that kind of how you operate? You remember the losses, but the wins you kind of just, okay, I won, on to the next one.
Yeah, basically. I would like to say that I think I'm gonna win every match, and not winning those 2 matches really, it sucked, but I can't do anything about it.
Now, your program is one of the best in the country, wrestling program, and UFC legend Daniel Cormier was in a recent podcast, and he talked about the St. John Bosco program, your teammate Grigor Cholakian, and how your program is, you guys do a great job over there. What did that feel like to get a shout out from one of the greatest MMA fighters of all time?
Yeah, it was definitely really cool. Daniel Cormier's student was actually the guy who beat me in the state finals. So I know him pretty well. I wrestle with his kids all the time. I kind of grew up with Daniel Cormier. I took a picture with him when I was 12, and then we just started kind of going back and forth ever since. He's like, "Oh, what's up, Nick?" I'm like, "What's up, DC?" It's pretty cool to know a guy like that, know a MMA legend, and the fact that he recognized me and Grigor, it was pretty cool, and especially saying it to Tsarukyan is pretty nice.
Yeah, speaking of Tsarukyan, you've associated with him a few times, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
of
what is
course.
it? What have you learned from him? What has he said to you? Anything specific that has stood out to you, and kind of, you've something that you've learned from him?
I think his confidence is pretty insane. Like we were just talking normally and we were like jogging around, like warming up. He was telling me how he's gonna like absolutely kill, Islam. And I was like, damn, okay. This is before the Dariush fight, so this wasn't even before Oliveira. So it was pretty cool to see like his confidence levels, even like 3 matches behind what he actually is gonna fight.
And what does it feel like to have, one of your top teammates, Grigor Chalakian? How does it feel like, obviously he's your teammate, but he's also Armenian. What does that feel like for you?
Yeah, I've known Grigor since I was like 10 years old. So we've been pretty close. I consider him a brother. And yeah, it's awesome. I used to look up to, I never told him this, but I used to look up to Grigor. He was always winning tournaments, and I wasn't. So I just wanted to be like, oh, I'm the guy who's winning now, and we're both winning. So that's what's important. We're staying with our like brotherhood, and then we're staying with our goals and winning and everything like that.
Does it kind of help that you guys are in different weight classes where you don't have to maybe fight
Yeah,
against each other, and you
yeah, for
guys can
sure.
cheer each other on?
Yeah, I wouldn't want to wish Grigor on my worst enemy. He's pretty good.
So, you're 17, 18 years old, correct?
17, yeah.
17 years old, your whole life is ahead of you. And when it comes to wrestling, there's many different routes a young athlete can take. Maybe they go the Olympic route, maybe they go to the MMA route. You're obviously committed to University of Michigan. What are your goals? What are your dreams when it comes to your sport?
So I really want to go to the Los Angeles Olympics. That's one of my goals I've been wanting since they announced it was going to be in LA. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, so I would love to, compete there, have all my family and friends join me and just watch me, hopefully win an Olympic gold title. And yeah, in college I want to win some NCAA titles. That's a dream that, I've learned ever since I knew what the NCAA was. And just stuff like that. And then hopefully I can, maybe go to MMA. Just depends on where I'm at. I'd like to do football, maybe NFL like Abel Stevenson's doing. That'll be pretty cool. That's where the money's at. So if that doesn't work out, then I have that. But I really want to do chiropractic as a job. Because Grigor's dad is also a chiropractor, so he's
Yeah.
been a little bit of a influence for me. And hopefully some sports medicine in there, a chiropractic office, and then some other things in there. Yeah, that's the main goal for me.
Chalaki and Cairo, they're big ASN fans. So shout out to them
Yeah.
for all the support from them. And so interesting. You mentioned football. Do you play football at St. John Bosco?
No, but I think I'm gonna play this year just for my senior year.
Awesome. And you'll be going to Michigan with national champions. So
Yeah,
so
yeah.
take us through that process, because you were committed to ASU and you flipped to Michigan. So what happened for you to decide to change allegiances? I mean, a lot of college athletes do that, especially in the high school stage. But what was in your mindset?
So basically ASU has been nothing but good to me. They're obviously, one of the best teams, and they're obviously the fun team because Arizona State is very fun. We have a lot of guys. I consider some of them family too, like Shea Addison, all those guys. They're just, great guys, great kids. But the wrestling is what I'm there for. And I think Michigan wrestling has the best opportunity for me, especially with all the partners. And you know, the coaches are pretty similar, I would say, but the coaches as well, and just how hard they push you during practice. Like I've seen practices at ASU, I've seen practice at Michigan, and Michigan just pushes you to the next level. And I need that myself. I need someone to push me. So that's what the main factor was for me.
Did you meet with some of the coaching staff or go to the campus? Or how did that work out?
Yeah, I went on
To recruit
a
you?
visit.
You went on a
Yeah,
visit.
I went on a visit like 2 week or like a week and a half before the U20 trials. So I went there, I got a little training in. It was pretty nice.
Now, you're a California kid. Do you have any worries about the cold in Michigan maybe being a problem for you?
Yeah, I mean Arizona is really nice and hot. I really like that. But Michigan can get, cold and snowy and a bunch of rain. But
Well,
as long as wrestling's there, I think I'll be fine.
exactly. If it gives you any solace, I'm from California as well, and I moved to Boston, and I've been there for 12 years. So It's
Yeah.
it's just weather. It's fine.
Okay.
So you talked about Olympics wanting to compete in 2028. How does that process work as far as which nation you would want to represent? Would it, you born in the United States, am I correct? So would you have to
Yeah.
be competing with Team USA, or is there a chance you can compete for Armenia? How does that work?
So I'd love to represent Armenia. It's also a little bit easier to go for the Armenian team. But I wrestled for the US last year at Worlds, and then I'm gonna wrestle for them this year at the Pan American Championships in Peru. So I think I'm just gonna stick with USA unless I get to the senior level and I'm just not making the team, I'm not good enough, then and I still want to compete at the Olympics, the world. But I think I'll be good enough to represent the US in the next 4 years.
Now, whether you represent the US or Armenia, there's 3 letters at the end of your last name that have people know you're Armenian, and you have a lot of fans in the Armenian community. What does it feel like to represent Armenians through your passion, which is wrestling? And how does that make you feel?
I mean, it feels great. Some kids, come up to me, they're like you're like the next, Arthur Alexanian. And I was like, thanks, man. Like, it's pretty cool to hear that. And especially with someone I looked up to, because I used to do Greco first and then transition into freestyle and then folk style. But yeah, he was definitely a huge role model for me. And then, that'll be great to be compared to one of the best in Greco-Roman wrestling. So,
and just go back earlier in your life. What made you obviously have different passions. You like football, you like wrestling. What made you decide to go into the wrestling path when you were younger?
yeah, I didn't really decide to do it. I wanted to play soccer or something. I hated wrestling growing up. My dad just kept me in it. He said I should still do it, and I'm gonna regret it if I quit. And he was right. If I quit, I would have regretted it because I'm doing pretty well right now. And yeah, it was just my dad. My dad forced me into it because my older brother used to do it, and then he just took me in one day. He didn't even tell me I was gonna wrestle. He just took me in, like got me some shoes and told me to wrestle. I was like, okay. I didn't have a choice.
And you've excelled in it ever since.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's fantastic to hear, Nico. I'm glad your father made the right choice. I'm glad you're doing excellent in your field, in your sport. You definitely have a bright future, and we can't wait to see what you accomplish next. And best of luck to you in your journey. And hopefully in 4 years, you'll be representing USA, Armenia, anyone at the 2028 LA Olympics. Thank you so much for your time, Nico.
Of course.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. It was a very heavy episode, a lot to talk about, from soccer to tennis to boxing to MMA and to wrestling. Jason, thank you for taking the time. We'll get some rest, and we will speak to you all next time.